going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz, Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, and you don't see my pretty sexy face, which you don't anyway if you're listening to this in an audio platform, but you know I'm not alone. I got Connor back with me once again, because good things happen when Connor's on the show, apparently.
Says who?
Yeah, I said it off air, and I said it on my NXT review yesterday, because this is going to go out on Friday. The last time I had you on here, we were talking about the Elimination Chamber. And we thought it couldn't get any worse. I mean, Chamber was a thing, but it seems to be very, very much overshadowed by everything else and the coming zombie apocalypse.
Dude, it has been just an insane 2 weeks, right? Like the last televised show in front of a WWE audience, in front of an audience, was NXT at the Performance Center.
And yeah, NXT at the Performance Center, which was a really cool show at the time, and we did not know that it was a really shitty harbinger of things to come, honestly.
Right.
So I have bullet points of some of the stuff that I want to talk about around this. I really don't know where we want to start, though.
Should we start with the thing that I told you right before we got on the air here?
Yeah, you kind of blew my mind. So this is going to go out tomorrow
good.
night.
You finished that. Good thing you finished that sentence.
Okay. Yep, that happened.
Yep.
This is going out tomorrow night, so it'll be old news by the time people are listening to this. But you just told me that Roman has voluntarily pulled himself from WrestleMania.
So as literally me and Spaz were like, okay, I'm ready. I'm just putting my kids to sleep. I'm not shitting you. The second I get done putting my daughter to sleep, I'm getting up. I'm about to message Spaz and say I'm hopping on now, and then I get tagged in a tweet and says, with an eyes wide open emoji, and it was from Pro Wrestling Sheet, Ryan Satin, who I know a lot of people aren't huge fans of, but hey, I gotta give him props on this one. That Roman Reigns voluntarily removed himself from the WrestleMania 36 match against Bill Goldberg, citing the main reason that he did not want to risk any sort of possible COVID-19 exposure because he is still technically immunocompromised. And obviously when you hear that, you're like, we 100% agree. There's no, a totally understandable decision. He apparently he asked WWE this. WWE immediately granted his request. So now the presumable main event of WrestleMania is dude, this show is crumbling like paper and water.
I don't want to venture this early into hyperbole. Obviously we all know what Roman's already been through. Nobody's going to hold this against him in the slightest. I don't think there was a snowball's chance in hell that Goldberg and Roman was going to be the main event, to be perfectly honest with you. I thought, Lesnar's who they hang their hat on, and they don't even do it, with an attempt at saying, oh, look, he's really awesome, check it out. They just position him as his main eventer, and I really do, at least I want to believe, because McIntyre's awesome, and we're gonna talk briefly about some of the WrestleMania stuff. I may do some sort of preliminary WrestleMania thing somewhere along the way, but I really do think that the main event was going to be Lesnar versus McIntyre, which it should be. But I also night? Well, that's true too. I really hope that the first night, and I know this is a pipe dream and this is purely based on who I like, I would love it following on last year where they had the first female main event. I would have loved the main event of the first night of this to be the Ripley-Charlotte match, because Charlotte is the big fish in WWE's eyes. Rhea Ripley is the one that the fans are obviously looking at and being like, yeah, she's the one you need to tie that rocket to, and she's not the one that's trying to be a vampire. And I think it's more the historical value of that particular title being defended at Mania, because I've said it before, I will say it again, and I'll say it till I don't think it's true anymore, because that's usually how things work. The best thing in WWE right now is the NXT Women's Division.
I agree.
Plus it is the result of the Royal Rumble win. You have 2 Royal Rumble wins, you have 2 Manias, so both Royal Rumble winners should highlight those respective shows. That is a decent argument.
Right.
I don't think they're going to do it. But
no, I think no, I actually, it's funny you say that. I was actually on a guest on another show a while back, and we were talking about women's wrestling in general, and I said that right now across the landscape, if you were to look at any of the promotions, Raw, SmackDown, Impact, ROH, AEW, the best one is NXT, no questions asked. They have the best balance, they have the best characters, blah 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 blah. I think that would have been a great, nice little balance if they did, Drew and Brock Lesnar night 2 as the main event, and then they did Ripley and Charlotte as the cap of night 1. I think that would have been a perfect mix. I completely agree with you on that. Now, I don't know what the fuck's going to happen, Spaz.
I mean, we'll dial it back a little bit because, like we said at the beginning, I don't have very many notes, so I'm just going to sort of pull things off the top of my head, and I welcome you to do the same. I kind of want to go to where this was first starting to come around, and I want to go with one thing that we need to, before we start timelining how all this stuff has happened so far. I want to address sort of the elephant in the room, and this applies not just to wrestling, but I think to entertainment in general. There's a big thought out there as to, like, why are you obsessing so much about the wrestling or about your theater closing or about one of your shows maybe being canceled for a couple of weeks? Don't you know there's bigger things in the world? People are losing their money, people are losing their jobs and whatever. And I think what's lost in all this is the value of entertainment in a crisis, and I'm really going to turn to you as being the American in this conversation, because you'll get what I mean in a second, because I want to tiptoe around this and show this the respect that it deserves. The only reference point as a wrestling fan in a time like this that I have is WWE's immediate reaction after the 9/11 attacks. And I mean, even as not an American, even as a Canadian, and I could say this from my own personal point of view, I remember that Smackdown. What was it, like 2 days after the attack happened? Vince coming out, bringing that speech out. We're not going to let this defeat us, and roddy rah, and just sort of like we're all back together, and you know what, we're fine, and we're moving forward, and all that sort of thing. So when I got the news, and the news sort of drip fed a little bit at a time, we got that NXT show from the Performance Center, because I think that was just something because like Full Sail was like booked that night. Wasn't that the original plan?
Yeah, that
was planned far in advance.
Yeah, Triple H alluded to that there was one commitment that Full Sail needed the studio for something that, or some sort of commitment,
right.
they had already done this. So that was in the plans months ago.
And they bussed people from Full Sail to the PC, and it was like a party atmosphere almost.
Yes.
But then you got, okay, this stuff isn't over in like other parts of the world. It's making its way here. We're going to start, we're going to be a little more careful. We're going to limit our house shows. I lost a house show that I was supposed to go to here. I mean, no big deal. WWE house shows are sort of dwindling, in my opinion. I also lost the Destiny show that I was supposed to go to, which was supposed to be headed up by Josh Alexander versus Jordan Devlin, which really bummed me out. I'm not gonna lie. But then you're like, oh, they're putting pressure on Vince to cancel WrestleMania, and we're all like, pfft. Right? Like, and then it's...
He's a stubborn guy, and it's not, some people are like, oh, Vince McMahon will always do WrestleMania. It's a matter of, it wasn't a matter of whether or not Vince was going to do it. It's a matter of whether or not it was going to be forced out of his hands. Essentially, the only thing that would have stopped Vince McMahon is a government-issued mandate that you cannot do the show, which was dangerously close to happening, because another piece of tidbit on this was that Orlando's going into a full shut-in, and the Performance Center was going to close down. So they literally taped everything from now until the Raw after WrestleMania. It's just like,
right. But I just like, and I don't want to dwell on, another tragedy other than the one that we're currently in. But it just, as soon as we got the news, the WrestleMania weekend had been canceled, the WrestleMania itself was happening, this was long after we'd already seen an audience-less SmackDown, an audience-less Raw. We were going into a an NXT that was just video packages pretty much.
Yep.
But we're like, okay, so we're gonna hobble through for a couple of weeks, and this is kind of weird, but like, this isn't gonna actually happen. And then we get the news: WrestleMania weekend has been canceled. Well, other events like Hall of Fame, all the charity stuff that they had planned, obviously, the TakeOver, which hits me close to home. And WrestleMania itself will happen in the Performance Center in front of nobody. And this might be my own fucked up way of thinking about it, but it's like, holy fuck, this thing that everybody's sort of debating, how bad is it? Is it as bad as people say? Are we overreacting? Are we underreacting? Etc. This thing did what 9/11 couldn't. And that was the first sort of like, holy fuck moment. Like in the wrestling context, in the span of like dealing with life in the real world, obviously we knew it was fucking terrible and all that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I want to be clear to people watching me, or listening to me right now, I'm not making a joke out of this. This is a wrestling channel. We're looking at these world events through the prism of wrestling.
What I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think what you're trying to get across the fact is that this is pretty monumental, not just because of what's going on in the world right now and all the social distancing, but again, WWE has always had the mentality of the show must go on. We will persevere. We will push through this. And the 2 days after 9/11, the first mass gathering of its kind, mm-hmm. any largest group of its gathering of its kind, was SmackDown. Mm-hmm. And it's widely regarded as one of, if not the best episodes of SmackDown in its history. The main reason being, if not the only reason, was because of the fact that it was so, patriotic and dedicated to, like, we're going to kick America's ass. And listen, you cannot fucking top that Vince McMahon promo that he did on that night. It was superb. But the fact that you have, and I've said this before in my show a couple of times, I feel bad for the people who are, out of work, losing money, and all this stuff. But as a wrestling fan, it's really just hard for me to wrap my head around this still.
Yep.
Not because we were all wondering, we were all waiting waiting on the edge of our seats, like, what's going to happen to WrestleMania. It's literally, I pictured an old Western where you had the mayor of Tampa on one side and Vince McMahon on the other, and who was going to draw first, and see who was going to end up being the lone gunman. At the end of the day, it was Tampa, and Tampa shut it down, and the government is shutting this down. And that's why I said to you earlier, of nothing will stop Vince McMahon for putting on a show other than a government issued mandate, which is exactly what's happening. And by the way, imagine if they didn't have the PC.
Yeah. I mean, in all fairness, like, I want to put the humor aside because it's not a humorous situation. I take my pot shots at AEW when I think they're appropriate. I think the shows that they've been pulling off at Daly's Place as a spectacle, which is weird to say because it's not happening in front of anybody, those shows are coming off really well. They managed to space themselves out enough that they could have wrestlers in the crowd. They've done some weird stuff. Like, each company, and that's only two. I don't know what Impact is doing. I don't know what, New Japan or any of the ROH. I don't know what any of they're doing because I don't watch them.
You don't want to know what Impact's doing.
Oh, no, I don't, do I?
Well, if one of your highlights of your shows, like one of the selling points of one of your shows is Scott Steiner uncensored live on a mic is one of them, then it is what it is.
Okay. Scott Steiner, who famously referred to Stephanie McMahon as a wily cunt in a What Culture interview. Anyways, moving on.
I'm not saying he's wrong.
But I mean, I don't think anybody's saying he's wrong.
Saying it would have been anyway, moving on.
But I think it's a very strange thing, and we can get into like how those shows look if you really want to. I think we're in a very unique position of the top two programs, at least on our side of the world, both have a place readily available to them. WWE, as we've seen this week on NXT, has the Performance Center and are lucky enough to also have use of Full Sail, which is cool. AEW have access to Daly's Place because I think that's a Tony Khan property. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, yep. So they both basically both of their Vince's own buildings, if that's a thing. So you can't really. I mean, there's a lot of people that are saying they shouldn't be doing shows period. I can't disagree with that, but they both have the amenities available to them. WWE is as long-form successful as AEW is short-form successful. So if you think you can, you should try. And my point in all this, and where I brought up earlier, people are really, really discounting the value of entertainment, and people, like I say, when I start talking about, I'm going to have to miss this WWE house show, which even on a good day, I wouldn't really care about. I'd be like, okay, I get my $40 back, I'd go another time. But you get that whole, like, oh my god, how can you worry about your silly little wrestling show when all this crap is going on in the world, and people are, sick, and people are potentially dying and losing jobs and losing houses and all that. And the problem is, and I go back to the 9/11 thing once again, 9/11, even up here in Canada, it led the news every night for 6 months. But eventually, you had to flip the channel over. Eventually, you got sick of it. Eventually, you flipped over to see Smackdown. And even though Vince was still talking about what was going on in the world, you got some wrestling out of it. Or you flipped over to your soccer game or your baseball game when they started playing again. So what's happened, and this is where I think it's a little bit of a, I said it to you before we came on air, it's a bit of a bad science experiment, is what you've done is you've taken an entire population of a planet, you've told them each to go to their rooms, pretty much, removed all positive distractions, and drip-fed them nothing but bad news. I don't want to. I said this briefly on my NXT review. I'm going to say it here too. You think about somebody like Mauro Ranallo, who's very outspoken about the mental health stuff, and obviously not surprised to not see him part of the show this week. The long-standing like mental health effect of this on the population as a whole, I don't think you can measure it at this point. But WWE, AEW, NXT, whoever, whether you think they should be doing this shows or not, even if you're tuning in to see how weird and fucked up Raw is, at least you've got 3 hours of laughing at a fucked up TV show than, cry laughing at the news.
I mean, for me, I can't speak too much because it's not really, I don't see too much of the impact on my personal life. So I'm trying my best to just kind of, continue as much as I possibly can and go about my normal life and just keep on, trucking as far as making stuff and blah, blah, blah. But again, going back to just the Mania stuff, I don't think it should be happening. I think there's a lot of signs that it shouldn't be happening, but, at this point I can't really say much more on it other than, I don't know, it's just really surreal to me that this is still going, like, in general, not just Mania stuff, but just wow.
Yeah, I mean, when we get to Mania Mania isn't happening. Like, we are not getting a WrestleMania this year. We are getting 2 back-to-back nights in an empty building that they're calling WrestleMania. But we're not getting, like, any actual wrestling fan is going to tell you, did we get a WrestleMania in 2020? No, we didn't. Like, we're getting, I was going to say we're getting a Raw with some special guest appearances, but it's not even a Raw because it's not even in an arena. We're getting something from, we're getting 2 shows from them that they are calling WrestleMania.
Hey, I'll say this before. I've said this on my last on the last Random Wrestling podcast. Do it like you did the deletion stuff. Mm-hmm.
Trust me. I've got a very similar comment when I want to talk about 1 or 2 rumors that we've heard about the card. I will say that the WWE, whether or not they should be doing the shows, there have been like little tiny glimpses of, you know what, that was probably better not in front of anybody. The initial face-to-face with John Cena and Bray Wyatt was my first example. The first no audience SmackDown, because right. it was in there. It was like watching a stage production, and that was pretty unique. Which was sort of, okay, they've realized that there's no audience. They've realized that they can pre-produce it, and they can do some stuff. They did the Miz and Morrison talking to other versions of themselves throughout the arena dressed as different tag teams that I thought was just really fun. I mean, obviously AEW stole that when they teleported Matt Hardy all around the empty Daily's place. They have done in the interim some things that they couldn't do in a building with a live crowd, and they've stretched a creative muscle that they wouldn't normally have. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm glad it's happening.
No, I think that there's ways of handling this and ways of going about it, and I think AEW did a very good job of handling the last 2 weeks as far as the empty audience and stuff. And, the thing is, like, my big gripe is that if you have an empty audience, don't acknowledge that you have an empty audience, or don't placate to it, right? Like, the Austin thing, I'm sorry, was fucking cringy to me.
The Austin thing... See, the problem with the Austin thing, though, and like, all due respect in the world for Austin that he's earned over his career, but the minute Austin walked out, he had that look on his face like, what the fuck is this? I can't believe I'm doing this.
Yeah,
but you get people that leaned into it, though, and it is the heels that get to lean into it a bit more, like Miz and Morrison saying, like, hey, if anybody doesn't think we're the greatest tag team ever, speak now. And then I'm holding up the microphone now, metaphorically.
Right, that stuff is fun. Like, that stuff I liked.
Matt Riddle coming out and, like, fist bumping the Invisible Bros.
Yes.
I think the best, and we're going to get into sentimentality at the end of all this in a second, because there is another really, really high point that I'm going to give to AEW, so everybody stay tuned for that. You're going to love it. But Jericho coming out to his audience and just planting Sammy Guevara in the crowd with a microphone to sing Judas because there's no crowd there. Like, but you need to have people that can do that, and not everybody can. And I was nervous going into NXT this week because I knew there was actual matches this week as opposed to just videotaped content, and there was a lot. The opening match, actually, Austin Theory and Tyler Breeze. I mean, Tyler Breeze is a pro. Austin Theory is somebody that I'm very quickly getting to know. And all the time, all the space that would have been filled with crowd noise was them just turning all their shit talk up to 11. And it was like watching them have a conversation while they fought. But it wasn't them calling the match, which I did hear the first couple of nights, which is awkward. I mean, there's no right way to do this. Like, nobody that's part of any of these shows could have prepared for this. Like, I have to cut them slack on that. But
right, no, it's definitely an uphill battle, But there's ways that you can there's ways you can maximize it. There's ways you can kind of go around it. Like you said, the heels can playing up to it. But but no, I think NXT was definitely a step up comparatively last week. I personally thought the main segment had a mixed bag, because I thought on one hand it was a bit of an eye roll, but on the other hand, had a great thing that I was smiling ear to ear on.
Is it the debut of supposedly Killer Kross?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I'm going to put this to you. We're going to take a side note from all this depressing shit for 1 minute, and then we're going to come back to the depressing shit. I promise you will get what you tuned in for, guys.
Depressing, okay.
Well, just the general situation that we're in, and
okay.
Sort of the general topic. I'm pretty sure the title of this video is going to be like WrestleMania season in the zombie apocalypse or some bullshit that I make up. But I've said every week, every time we've seen the little glitchy, like, little flashes of almost like the Bray Wyatt stuff.
Yep.
Hey, supposedly this is for Killer Kross. I don't know if I should be excited because I don't know anything about Killer Kross and I'm too lazy to look him up. So, 30 seconds or less, tell me what I have to look forward to with Killer Kross.
Think of your favorite, like, realistic, think of your favorite, like, humanized serial killer in a wrestler. That is Killer Kross.
Okay. I like serial. I was about to say I like serial killers, but you know.
No, but that
sounds like I'm gonna open up when I retire from my actual job. I'm gonna get my friends. I'm gonna get some money together. I'm gonna put together a breakfast buffet called Serial Killers.
Love it.
It's gonna be good.
If you invite Captain Crunch, if you look at his body of work, and again, I'm heavily abridging his stuff. He is a fantastic heel, a great look, very good on the mic, and he can get the job done. I wouldn't say his in-ring stuff is stuff that is like extremely like holy crap, you have to see this match, but I think his character gives you enough insight, and he is very good at being this like evil, sadistic. The best. I'm trying to think of like the best like Batman villain, because I feel like he's a Batman villain. But I'm trying to think of the best one I can like compare him to give you an accurate representation. I want to say he's a mix of like Bane and Ra's al Ghul.
Okay. I'm not gonna lie, I put it out on Twitter like when this first started like rumbling around, and 3 or 4 people are like, "Don't worry, he's got a hot wife." I'm like,
well,
I get it, but that's really not like my go-to example was before Ember Moon debuted, and I was talking to one of my other great co-hosts that you probably remember, Guapo, and he's like, "All you need to know, dude, stunner from the top rope." I'm like, fair enough. Like, that was my selling. When he told me about the Eclipse, I'm like, okay, that works. It's all good. People started telling me about Ricochet, and then I saw Ricochet at an NXT house show take on Buddy Murphy, and I'm like, okay, I'm sold. Anyways, the only thing I have against that, you know, because they're doing an empty arena match where all their shows are empty arena shows right now, and if they're going to use this to introduce Killer Cross, it's yet another match between Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa that is not going to have an ending, or not going to have a proper ending.
No, it's got to, because they have to. When Johnny Gargano took the belt from Tommaso, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of did an eye roll, because by the way, I'm laughing at Twitter right now saying that Gronk is going to challenge Goldberg for the title. The only...
Hey, everybody out there, tell me what I need to know about Gronk, because I don't give a fuck about football.
You don't need to know anything about... I'm from New England. No.
He's Mojo Rawley's friend. That's already more than I want to know.
He's pretty much a Mojo Rawley clone. Anyway, so...
He looks like Gumby. I like Simon Miller from What Culture. It's like when you create a character on WWE 2K20 and put all the entrances in at once.
Holy shit, he's right.
Yeah,
he's right. That is a very accurate representation. Anywho, what the fuck were we talking about now? I completely blanked.
We lost it. We lost it entirely.
Oh, Johnny Gargano.
Yeah, there we go.
Yep, I got it back. Took me a second.
It's tired in here.
Oh man, I've been beaten. So anyway, when Gargano took the belt from Ciampa, I sort of rolled my eyes, because okay, there's another match for TakeOver Tampa at the time. But my only roll of the eyes wasn't because I didn't think we're gonna get a match. We're gonna get a good match from those guys no matter what. You could give them an empty arena match. They're gonna pull off an incredible performance.
Of course.
I'm not worried about that. My worry is that, one, what the fuck else could you do at this point with them? Like, honestly, aside from a 3 stages of hell or a Hell in the Cell match in and of itself, there's really not much else you could do to outdo those previous performances they've done. And on top of that, realistically, with the two of them together, I mean, especially after the promo that we saw, there's no way that not one of them is going to go up to Raw or SmackDown.
I was going to say that was my other problem with that whole segment, and I put most of this on Triple H actually, because he said everything that you would possibly think would indicate a loser leaves NXT match without saying this is a loser leaves NXT match,
which they've done before.
Yeah, my thing is, honestly, if you want to subvert expectations, because everything, like they did the rundown a week ago, so it's sort of fresh in my head, and I just did my review of that this week. Their first match wasn't a regular match. They've had street fights, they've had 2 out of 3 falls matches, they've had unsanctioned matches, they've had all sorts of things. I think as much as some people are going to roll their eyes at this, and I only say this because I have the faith that these two guys could pull it off, you could subvert the expectation of them having this, like, oh my god, it's going to be crazy, it's going to be Omega Moxley, and they're going to put each other through broken glass, by having a straight-up wrestling match. Because in the entire feud, they've never had a normal wrestling match. You have to go back to the Cruiserweight Classic, you have to go back to their Performance Center tryout match before you see anything televised between these two guys that is just a regular match. And I would love that subversion. I think everybody else, to your point, is expecting an escalation. I think the turning on its head element of making it like a pullback to move forward would work. I don't know that the crowd would receive it as well as I want them to.
What with them having a
regular match? Just because everything they've had.
There's no fucking way.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of the one thing that's, and I'm definitely repeating what I said in my last video now. It's the one thing I've wanted, because from the very first match they had at a TakeOver, it was stipulation on stipulation on stipulation and they were great. Don't get me wrong, the handcuff suspension DDT on the exposed boards of the ring, I'm handcuffed to the friggin' stageway, and I just won because he missed that running knee and took himself off the edge of the stage. Like, all these cool moments that we've seen, the belt shots, the crutch and the knee brace becoming signature weapons in the feud, have all been great. It's almost played out like Shakespeare. But, like, I may be alone in this, and you're free to tell me I'm crazy. I want the surprise of a regular match. And I know nobody's going to agree with that, but I kind of do. I want to feel the way I felt when I saw these two guys that I didn't know in that first round of the Cruiserweight Classic.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you, actually, because what do you do? Like, legit. And honestly, if you told me, hey, Gargano and Ciampa are going to fight in a normal wrestling match, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah.
Because realistically, again, what else could you do?
Yeah.
Especially now. The only thing really you could do, honestly, in my opinion, is a Hell in a Cell. That's it. Because everything else they've already done has just been so over the top. I think you're right. Bringing it back to basics, especially, you can twist this around. You could twist this around and say, last time we beat each other up, we beat each other up, blah blah blah. But I don't want to beat you up. I want to defeat you in a wrestling match. There's ways you can spin it. So I'm not disagreeing with you at all. In fact, honestly,
you could make it a pride thing, right? Like, you could make it like, because neither one of them is 100% a good guy right now. I mean, Gargano's the one that just turned, but like, Ciampa's never been like a pure Snow White babyface either. So you could play with character a little bit, but you could do it as a matter of pride. You could have one or the other bring a chair in and be like, go on, I know you want to use it. That's your way, isn't it? And then, like, they don't because the other guy called them out on it. Like, send them in there with a no-rules match that ends up being a regular match because both of them are too prideful to be the first one to grab a chair or something. Like, you can play that story out. And I just think I don't think there's any way for me to make the masses of fans appreciate what I want to see, and I don't think it would go over at all. Because you are right. Like, where do they go from here is naturally an upward thing. If it was WWE and not NXT, and it was like a loser leaves, whatever, I would expect it to be like a ladder match. And there's only one NXT contract at the top of the ladder, and only one person's going to walk out of here with an NXT contract. But I feel like that's almost too cliche for NXT.
Yeah, but, I wouldn't mind it.
Plus, I really don't, and we're already going to see one with the ladies. I really don't want to see a ladder match in front of nobody, because you're fucking yourself up for no crowd. Like,
yeah, it's true.
I mean, that's all the matches, but I mean, anyways, I want to address something a little lighter, a little more logistical, but it could still be a little bit of a fun conversation. We are getting empty mania that weekend over the 2 nights. They did cancel TakeOver, and that's something I'm going to talk about in a second. But they also canceled the Hall of Fame. And my immediate response to that is, okay, cancel the Hall of Fame. Don't do the Hall of Fame with no audience. And if the world gets itself back on track in time and we can have crowds again, whatever, there's WrestleMania, but there's also the WrestleMania of the summer. Yeah.
I'd be fine with that.
Because SummerSlam is the same thing, right? Like you're gonna have.
I'm fucking selfish because I'm going to SummerSlam.
Well, yeah, but even still, like I'm not, and I still want like don't attach the Hall of Fame to like Extreme Rules, because that's lame.
Or Money in the Bank. No, I think
prescriptions in the bank.
Prescriptions in the bank. Got it on the bank.
Anyways, but no, like, I mean, most of the people going into the Hall of Fame are old, and most people that are older are, like, what's the word they're using, like, immunocompromised, whatever. So nobody's going to be able to come out and receive their Hall of Fame thing anyway. If you flipped it around and made, just for this year, or maybe they want to continue doing it going forward, I don't know, but make the Hall of Fame part of the SummerSlam weekend, that would be a cool substitute, in my opinion.
I think they're going to. I think that would make the most sense. Because, and again, in some cases, it actually would make more sense. Like British Bulldog. I mean, he was known, one of his best matches of his career was
at SummerSlam, yeah.
Right. So it kind of makes a little more sense in that aspect, But
well, I mean, they keep on pushing WrestleMania further and further into the summer now that we're in all these open-air arenas, right? Like, you don't want to... Like, WrestleMania used to be in the middle of March. And, like, they've just gone, like, a week every year or so, just pushing it out farther, to the point where we stuck a second pay-per-view in the middle there. I mean, this year it happened to be one in Saudi Arabia, and we don't need to talk about it. But, the one thing I will say, the empty mania is really divisive and whatever. I do, because they're doing it, like they could have decided not to do it, because they are doing it, the decision to do it over 2 nights doesn't hurt my feelings, because I am not going to watch a empty arena, empty gymnasium WrestleMania for 8 hours.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do. I honestly don't know what I'm going to do for WrestleMania. I was actually debating doing a watch along.
Yeah.
I haven't decided yet. Yeah, I'm definitely going to watch it, obviously, because it's just so intriguing to me to see what the hell's going to happen with this.
It isn't, like, this is the thing, though, like, it is intriguing. Like, when they did the first SmackDown, right? If that SmackDown, I don't know what other reason why it would happen. An empty arena episode of SmackDown, just randomly thrown in the middle of the year, not for obviously all these health reasons or whatever, but like a one-off novelty, hey, WWE kind of got fucked over and Staples Center kicked us out because they double booked or whatever, so we had to move it to the Performance Center for a night. That just, and you'd have to have the built-in knowledge that it was for one night. That one night as a novelty would kind of be okay. You'd get the curiosity rating. Like, the ratings would go up because people would want to see what that would look like. Oh my god, that's going to look really weird. But I think, like, at the end of that SmackDown, we all sort of realized, this is what it's going to be like going forward for a bit. Okay, that's going to get old fast. But when they said they were going to move WrestleMania, and this is, me, like, in my upswing of, like, okay, I'm going to try and find something positive here, because there really isn't anything positive here. With a presentation like this, with getting the knowledge, getting the initial announcement that WrestleMania is now going to happen in the Performance Center in front of no audience. Mm. There is a very small part of this that sits on each and every single one of us. Sits on me, sits on you, sits on all the YouTubers out there, sits on all the people on Twitter, all the casual viewers that just turn on their TV every Monday to decide, okay, that's what's happening that night. Are you going to have fun with it or not? Like, there comes a point where there's nothing else, and I know I sound like a WWE apologist, I've gotten that accusation a whole bunch, but like, WWE's giving you a show. It's not what you wanted, it's not what they want to give you, but this is what it's going to be on the night. You can decide whether you're going to watch it as this weird, like, bizarre Elseworlds WrestleMania, or you can look at it and say, no, that's fucked, I got better shit to do. But the people that decide to watch it have to decide that they're going to have fun with it, because that's the only way it's going to be fun.
Listen, I have a contract with Fight, so
I mean, okay, people that are basing a paycheck on it are sort of out of the realm of the point I'm trying to make. But like wrestling fans, if you want to have fun that night, you kind of have to decide to have fun that night. If you want to,
no, I completely agree with you on that, because you know full well what we're going to get. And then again, this kind of goes back to the idea of like, you know, if it was just like their weekly shows, or even like a minor pay-per-view like Money in the Bank or Extreme Rules or Night of Champions or whatever the fuck, it's one thing. But this is fucking WrestleMania.
Yeah.
You know how tempted I was to print out a picture of the WrestleMania logo on a piece of computer paper, stick it against the wall, and point onto the sign just so I could feel it again.
Right? Oh, okay. Side note, seeing as you want to talk about logos for a second, I'll have to send it to you later. Somebody tweeted me a reimagined image of the WrestleMania logo, except instead of the pirate thing, like instead of the what do you call it? Instead of the pirate logo, it had the Performance Center logo, and instead of being printed on a flag, it was like a big scrolled out roll of toilet paper.
I did see that.
It's good, right? But also, I kind of hate them and I kind of love the balls on WWE Shop.
Oh God, yeah, that stupid T-shirt.
For the WrestleMania I wasn't there shirt. On the one hand, I'm like,
sell like crazy.
It is. Because as much as every single person is like, oh my God, how could they do that? How could they possibly think that's funny? The same people saying that are going to buy it. Like,
yep. No, you're not wrong. You're not
when this
wrong.
is and I'm saying this a lot. There's a whole lot of sentences that I'm saying right now with when this is over. We're like, there's going to be a documentary on this, like WWE 24 something or other in like a year from now is going to package together all this shit, and can you believe we did this, and can you believe we pulled this off, and da-da-da-da, and can you imagine we had the guts to put a shirt like that on our website? Like, as soon as things are okay again, we're all gonna laugh, and it's gonna be like a really, really nervous, exhausted laugh. The one thing that drives me nuts, though, and it bugged me specifically this week on NXT, when there's oh my God, it's the WrestleMania too big for one night, and they have to sell the show. I get it. This is the tagline they've been given to sell the fact that it's now happening on two nights. We know why it's happening on two nights. Like, there's some serious shit going on. Stop trying to tell me that a global pandemic is an awesome marketing opportunity, because it's terrible. It's not like Roman Reigns coming out and Michael Cole going, oh my God, it's the big dog, and we all take our drink, because that's how the drinking game works. Don't tell me how awesome it is that the thing's being spread over two nights because, you know, we're all gonna die. Like, that's not the move. That is really not the move.
Well, you can't say the big dog anymore.
It's true. It's true. And I guarantee you they're not going to be referring to the Undertaker as the dead man even once.
So I apologize. I keep getting notifications on my phone saying people like, oh, did you hear about it? I'm like, yep, I you know. Da-da.
Yep.
And someone just said on Twitter, man, I have the perfect opponent for Goldberg, and I just see a bunch of Matt Riddle gifs.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Listen, for the amount of shit that people give Twitter sometimes,
Yeah.
Some people can pull through.
No, I'm just, my thought on that is, honestly, this thing that they've pushed off and pushed off and pushed off and pushed off and told Matt Riddle to not do it anymore and whatever, this is exactly the thing where they're going to be like, well, it's a shit show anyway. Go for it.
Might as well, right? Shoot.
Oh my god, I just thought of something.
What?
Matt Riddle walks out of Empty Mania as the Universal Champion.
Well, Goldberg's got to lose the belt to somebody.
No, but that means that the belt is going to go from red to blue to yellow.
to green, bro.
Oh my god. Well, this is the thing too. Like, he can't defend his tag team titles because apparently Pete Dunne's stuck in the UK. Along with Walter.
Oh man.
Like, Connor. Like, fuck, man.
This is kind of getting fucking ridiculous.
Okay, so now I want to go because the last big part of I want to talk about TakeOver in a second as well. This is like as unscripted as you can possibly be. We talked about Raw. We talked about SmackDown being in the open air, or sorry, not in the open air, in the empty performance center, and it's weird because we had just seen NXT in a full performance center, and it was awesome. And then we went off to see AEW and whatever. And we knew they were going to do something as well. While we were laughing at SmackDown, while we were laughing at Raw, while we were even sort of sadly laughing at WrestleMania, I really do, because I firmly believe no matter which side of the war you're on, the wrestling fan heartbeat lives on Wednesday nights. So this was all fun and games until we got to Wednesday 9 days ago. When it hit NXT, when it hit AEW, the whole tone on social media changed. And it's that difference between Raw that we go into knowing we're probably going to laugh at it anyway, because there's probably going to be something lame or dumb or whatever. We go into SmackDown, which is this multi-billion-dollar shit show that's also like a blue Raw, and it's probably going to suck, and we're all going to complain about it, and isn't it pathetic and whatever. So to see those shows that we mock anyway become reduced as they have was one thing. But then, like, everybody's tone sort of universally changed when it got to Wednesdays, and all of a sudden it's like, oh fuck, they're coming for the wrestling we like now.
Yep. Yeah, no kidding.
I didn't like, and I've been very honest about this, just because, as I said before, like, these are the things that we use to escape how shitty the real world is sometimes. I didn't watch NXT 9 nights ago, because I was just like, no. Well, I heard it was going to be a clip show, so I was like, okay, I can catch that on the rebound if I really want to, but B, I was just like, for one night, and this is going to sound, like, overly sappy as far as fandom goes, I couldn't do it. Like, I had seen SmackDown, I had seen Raw, and I was like, if they're going to do that to NXT. And I'm sure the AEW fans felt the same way in their own way. I watched AEW instead because I'm not as connected to that product. And I was just like, I had that one night, and I threw it out on Twitter. I'm like, guys, I'm not doing this tonight. I couldn't do it, and that sounds lame, but it's everybody on that Wednesday night went like, okay, COVID, now it's personal. So we come to the announcement about WrestleMania, and the shining light, the silver lining, if there is one, was that WrestleMania is being stretched out over 2 nights. It's going to be in front of no audience. It's going to be at the Performance Center. It's going to be super fucking lame. But they canceled TakeOver. And in my head,
well, sort of.
No. Well, at the time,
Yeah.
This is before the Sports Illustrated announcement. I'm getting there. But I thought, you know what? Wouldn't it be good to go back to that SmackDown after the attack happened? How we all came back together, and here's a really awesome show that could get us right going again. Wouldn't it be awesome if the first live show with an actual audience was that TakeOver, like a month or 2 months or 3 months later, and we're saving it, and we're not going to drag it through the mud of being in the Performance Center. We're not going to drag it through the mud of having no audience. It'll be great. We'll be back there in full force. We'll be, we'll all be black and gold for a night. It'll all be great. And then, Connor, they're taking my show's pay-per-view, and they're not giving it to us in one night of no audience pay-per-view. They're spreading this pay-per-view over like 6 nights of no audience weekly television.
Mm-hmm.
Here is where I have to, although it pains me, give credit to AEW. Because AEW wasn't even planning a pay-per-view. They were planning a pay-per-view level episode of Dynamite with their very, very cheap and amateur ripoff of the War Games match between the Elite and the Full Circle, the Inner Circle, and they've put that off indefinitely, and they've just given us another random episode. I will say Dynamite wasn't too terrible last night. I liked Darby Allin, I like Sammy Guevara. Cody Rhodes can fuck off, and so can his wife. We don't need to go there right now. It's fine. But they've seen that, and they've put it off because that, I don't know how far they're going to put it off. I mean, eventually they're going to have to do it, but they've put it off. They've stripped down a pay-per-view that could have possibly been the best pay-per-view in the history of my favorite brand, and they've sold it for parts.
Yep.
I don't like it.
What else are they going to do?
I mean, I get it. I get it. I do not have a better option. I do not have they should have done this instead. I don't. But
if anything, that gives you guaranteed 2 great weeks of NXT.
It's true. And it gives everybody that was going to be on that TakeOver a chance to be the main event. Because I'm assuming, Gargano Ciampa is going to be the main event of one of those shows. The ladies' ladder match is going to be the main event of one of those shows. So for that point, it's kind of cool. I want to hope that it's going to swing the ratings back to where they were supposed to be. But apparently the ratings didn't get recorded for NXT this week. Somebody retweeted something, and it was give me the typical people that report that shit. Not Meltzer.
Brian Alvarez.
Maybe. And it was like...
No, Alvarez reported he reported what the ratings were for NXT.
Last night?
Yeah.
Okay. No, because a tweet that I saw...
Here, I'll pull it up.
Okay. I mean, I pretty much know.
I know there was a delay.
Yeah. It was just whoever I saw that had done it, basically it was like AEW got Roddy Raw, NXT not logged. I'm like,
it didn't chart.
Well, that's just sad.
So AEW got 819, NXT got 669.
That makes me sad. But yeah, no, it's a progressive thing. I'm speaking as a very, very selfish NXT fan. It shouldn't take me losing my NXT pay-per-view to be like, this all sucks, because it all sucks. But it twist the knife sucks now. I don't know how to say it. I really don't know. If there's one thing, and again, there's going to be one more little bit of credit to AEW in all of this. There's going to be one, even if you're not an AEW fan, there's going to be a cathartic moment, I think. And everybody has their own version of what's going to be cathartic. Everybody's going to have their own version of what counts as this being over, in air quotes. But WWE doesn't really have anything like this right now. The first live crowd that shows up to an AEW show and Jericho comes out and you get that crowd singing Judas, I don't think you're going to hear the music. I really don't. Like, when Jericho I watched the Dynamites that were done on the Jericho cruise because they heard that WWE was going to be pirate themed, so they immediately had to do something on a boat. It's fine.
Of course.
But Jericho walking out as the hero, as the host of that party on that boat, where you almost couldn't hear his music for the fans, you are going to have something that big and that loud at some point. There's going to be that. There's going to be the loudest Adam Cole, baby, that we've ever heard. There's going to be yes chants, even if they're not directed at Daniel Bryan. The first heel to come out on television is going to get wutted out of the building. I heard, and I'm trying to remember who said it now, I heard the suggestion that whatever the very first televised wrestling event from WWE is, whether it's Raw, SmackDown, and forget about the brands for a second, no matter what the show is, the first show that has a live crowd needs to open with Baron Corbin. And have him just get slaughtered by the crowd, and then just like Owens walks down, does the stunner, does a complete Austin, like maybe cheers some beers in the ring or something like that. There's going to be so much, and I keep using the word catharsis because it's just the word that works right now. There's going to be such a coming together after this, and it'll happen for other things too. It'll happen with people going back to the movies. It'll happen with people going to concerts. It'll happen with, your local soccer team or your local football team and whatever. But wrestling fans are going to be weird in the sense that, like, we didn't just lose wrestling. We saw wrestling become something else and weird and sad, and like it wasn't just taken from us, it was tortured in front of us. And now it's back. And that might be me, just being a sentimental dickhead. But whatever the next WWE live event with a crowd is, I don't care whether you come back to Toronto at the Coca-Cola Arena where we have our house shows. I don't care if that's what it is. That's going to be WrestleMania.
I feel like the first return WWE is going to have is they're going to change the tagline of their company and say something like boredom is the disease and we are the cure. I would not be surprised if they did something along those lines.
But you know what? And everybody says that I don't necessarily want to like speak for you and say what you mean, but a lot of people will say that in that regard, and I bet they're going to brand themselves as the one that saves us from all of this, and here we are putting on the show, and they say that in a self-righteous way, but it's not wrong. Like, I go back to what we said at the beginning of this video, and we've had a lot of ramble since then. Do not misjudge. I'm not saying it to you, I'm saying it to anybody listening to me right now. Do not disallow the value of entertainment in a crisis. Because you need to look at something else. Even if they go to the Performance Center this Friday for SmackDown, and it is a 2-hour Iron Man match between Lana and a returning Eva Marie. Hating that show for 2 hours, shitting on Lana, shitting on Eva Marie, hating that show for everything that it is still 2 hours that you're not thinking about what's going on outside your door.
Very true.
And I can't. That's why I can't shit on WWE for doing the shows. I can still look at a show objectively and critique, like, oh, I think the story should go this way, or, maybe they could have done that a bit better. There was a little bit, but I can't shit on them because they're the only thing that's still going on. I'm a movie guy. I can't go to the theater right now. I'm not a sports guy, but I have a lot of friends that are. The sports are not happening. Some of the TV shows are, like, I watch Walking Dead and they do the little talk show thing afterwards, right? I watched Walking Dead this past Sunday, and then I tuned into Talking Dead. I don't know if you're familiar or not, but like it's the live cast interview with the cast and all sort of shit that goes on like after The Walking Dead comes on. And they did Talking Dead, but they did it over Skype. And
I did see that. Yeah.
And that's not a distraction. That just, like, that's not distracting you from the problem. That's you staring right at an example of the problem. And it's weird times. It's weird, and wrestling is weird right now, and it's not great. And you come around to stuff like I feel for Rhea Ripley and I feel for Drew McIntyre, because they're going to have their WrestleMania moments in front of no audience.
Yep.
And that's terrible, and you can't get that shit back. But at the same time, like, they're giving us something. Like, I'm at the point now where something is something and nothing is nothing, and they're giving us something. And that goes for anybody. I don't care if it's Impact giving us a 2-hour Scott Steiner profanity-filled rant. I don't care if it's, Cody Rhodes walking out in the middle of Daly's place and sucking his own cock, because that's what he does. I don't care if it's Baron Corbin versus Elias in a 2 out of 3 falls handicap match with Otis as the referee. It's something. And that's where I'm at. And I'm just, and I don't know, I'm just bored. Like right now, because I've been dubbed an essential service, and what that defines changes by the minute. I stare at the 4 walls of my work, and then I stare at the 4 walls of my house. So if some of that can be watching a wrestling show, even if it's bad, and some of that can be, coming up on here with you or Jake, or watching Joe, or watching Cresta Star do her stuff on Twitter, or shooting the shit with Guapo about AEW and having a little friendly rivalry there, we can only do that because they're trying to give us something, and That's all I got. I don't know. This is not a very uplifting conversation, but I thank you for having it with me, and I thank everybody that's listening to us right now. And you guys are going to be hearing this on Friday, so this is a hell of an uplifting way to end your week. What have we not touched on?
I think you pretty much covered everything at this point.
All right. So, bottom line. I don't know. I need to have a clever tagline for this. Bottom line. Shit sucks right now. Hopefully it gets better. Why don't you tell them where to find you, buddy?
You can find me on YouTube, youtube.com/okfaver. Of course, over on my YouTube channel, where I've been posting somewhat regularly again. Also, my weekly podcast, the Random Wrestling Podcast, available on all audio platforms, and every Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern on Fight, and of course, okfabe.com.
All right, and you guys know where to find me, or you wouldn't be here. I've been Spaz. He's been Fabe. We are your YWC reality check. Subscribe up there. Talk down there. Start a conversation. Keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later. But for right now, myself and Connor are tagging out. Bye, guys.
For the year.